Got a real treat for you today. We're in Northeast Maryland with Christina Harrison, folk singer, songwriter from Scotland. How did I find her, you say? Well, I'll get into that in a minute. Christina, thank you for having us into your home and your studio to share your story with our viewers, with our folks, our subscribers. The way I contacted Christina, I was reading a magazine called Folk Roots. It's published in Europe, and we've advertised in it, so we get copies of it. And I was reading the record reviews, and they were talking about this Scottish folk singer living in Northeast Maryland. And I looked on the map, and it was only 3.5 hours away from home. So I called her up, we talked, I listened to some of her music on her website, and here we are. This is something we should share. And again, thank you for having us. How did you get into the Folk Roots magazine, living in America, in a European publication? And what brought you to America from Scotland? Give us a little bit of insight into Christina, where you're from.
Got 2 hours.
We've got all the time in the world.
Well, I'll answer your first question before I forget it. Yeah, it was great to be reviewed in Folk Roots, although I'm based over here. Essentially, it was my latest album that got their attention because I did record it in Scotland, whereas all the other albums I recorded in the States. So I presume that was one of the attractions. And also Ian Bruce is the producer of the album, and he does some vocal backing on it, and I know they're familiar with his music, and so that may have been another reason. Second question. Well, I came over here almost 15 years ago to do two things. Number one, to marry my husband, and number two, to embark on a full-time music career.
What did you do in Scotland before you came?
Well, I was actually living and teaching in London. I was teaching in a high school. I had been teaching in the East End of London, and then I moved a little further out of the city to Essex. And my husband, who has been a geology teacher in Delaware for over 30 years, he had come over to do a Fulbright exchange for a year and just happened to come to my school.
It's amazing how a life can change by a happenstance.
Yeah, I mean, especially when he tried to convince me that Northeast would be more interesting than London.
Is it?
No.
But it's nice up here. It's right at the tip of the Chesapeake Bay.
Oh yeah, we love being here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right off of Route 40. And we live on the eastern shore, way down on the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah.
Down in Crisfield, Maryland.
We're moving closer that way. Not too far, not as far down as you, but a little bit.
But it's fairly sparse up here. It doesn't have the population of Wilmington or Baltimore.
Right.
But there's enough people that there's a lot going on too.
Yeah.
So
well, also I think it's a great location because 45 minutes you're in Philadelphia, 45 minutes you're in Baltimore,
yes.
In 2.5 hours you're in New York, and an hour and a half you're in DC. So really, we have the best of all worlds.
Do you do much performing in those areas?
Yeah, but I travel much further afield as well. I consider those areas local, but I would say that the majority of my performing is done much further north and much further south.
Now, do you get back to Europe much?
Yeah, last year I went back just to Scotland to do the new album. Previous 5 years I did a European tour, singing mainly in Germany, Austria, Slovenia, and at the Butte Festival in Scotland.
Now, I'm told by various artists that we talk to and meet on the road and festivals, things like that, that I'm going to say American music, but American-based entertainers, the type of music that we do here, the acoustic music, is very popular, especially in the Germany and in the Scandinavian countries. Do you find that to be true?
Well, American acoustic
Yes.
music? Yes. I mean, I think that's because they've been brainwashed by the major record companies. But like most societies have been, not that there's anything wrong with the music, but basically you turn on the radio and that's what everybody hears. But I would also say that my experience in Germany in particular was incredible as far as Celtic music is concerned, in particular Irish music. I did a lot of Irish venues, and I have never sung to more enthusiastic audiences. I used to think the most enthusiastic audiences were in America, but the Germans are much better listeners. And I think it might have something to do, with their serious classical background.
Mm-hmm.
I think from babies they're raised to really listen very carefully.
And they believe in what Satchmo said. It's either good or bad.
Yeah.
It can be classical, bluegrass, folk,
Absolutely.
and if it's good, they love it.
Yeah, and they do love American music. They love American music in Britain too. So typically, what I would do if I wasn't playing in a real folk club scene, if I was in an Irish pub, for example, which, by the way, is almost like a folk club setting. I mean, the audience really listen. They
like
really
a coffee
enjoy
house,
it. Yeah,
almost with beer.
Yeah, exactly. They at the end of a program where I had done mostly traditional music, I would throw in some great American classics from the 70s, like City of, or maybe the 60s. Of course, I wasn't around those days, so I can't remember.
One of my favorite songs.
City of New Orleans, Country Roads, Johnny Be Good, even, Peter, Paul and Mary stuff, Kingston Trio, and they knew it. And I spent a lot of time in Germany over the years, and I realized I was actually in Germany in the early 70s doing those songs in those days, and I realized that their familiarity with it probably comes from the fact that they were very into campfires, going trailing, hiking, camping, and they all sit around these fires and sing these songs from the 60s and 70s.
It's really funny. We talk about folk music.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up driving around in a 57 Chevy. I was a teenager. I had one, listening to the Beatles, listening to Peter, Paul, and Mary, you name it. And a lot of that was pop rock and roll music, which is really folk music today. Mm-hmm. I think it survives the test of time, absolutely, popularity, mm-hmm, international borders. And who knows, maybe what's today pop will be folk in 40 years.
Yeah.
A lot of it'll sink down, but what remains, we went to a concert, oh boy, has to be 14 years ago. Peter, Paul, and Mary were at the Valley Forge Music Fair. Mm-hmm. And we were all 40-something, mid-40s, most of the audience, who listened to them when they were kids back in the 60s and late 50s. And the old songs performed by those people were just as exciting and wonderful as they were when we first heard them. Oh, yeah. The only thing is, they got old. I didn't. We didn't. But it was great to see them. And I guess they're still touring, still performing. Yeah. I don't know. But it was really neat to see people who had such an impact on us when we were kids and see their music still affecting people.
Yeah.
And I guess that folk music has to survive the test of time, does it not?
Yeah.
To become part of a culture.
Yeah,
of some sort.
Yeah, well, that's the whole definition of folk music. It's something that's handed down by folk. It's not necessarily commercial. Of course, it could be commercial in those days, but it's handed down by, from mouth to mouth.
Yes. Well, when you sing like Puff the Magic Dragon or Leaving on a Jet Plane or The City of New Orleans, everybody knows it. Mm-hmm. Bad, Bad Leroy Brown, Jim mm-hmm. Croce. That's a folk song today. Everybody knows it.
Yeah, that's
everybody plays it, and it takes on a life of its own.
Yeah.
Beyond the artist, beyond the label.
That's right.
Anything else.
Yeah,
that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, they become legendary.
Yes.
Songs. Yeah. But it makes me think how even more fascinating it is that songs that are anywhere, say, from 2 to even 1 to 500 years old, it's amazing that they have survived for so long without the assistance of modern technology.
Yes. And the tunes especially. If you take a song like The Wreck of the Old 97, mm-hmm. well, go up a little bit, the Kingston Trio, I believe it was, doing The Man Who Never Returned, mm-hmm. and back a little bit, The Ship That Never Returned, mm-hmm. and probably before that, half a dozen others.
Right.
And the tune has always been part of some culture and used and enjoyed even though the words may change.
Yeah.
It's an amazing process, the folk process.
Yeah, and they're usually songs that have a story.
Yes.
That you're not singing about a broken heart, and that's it.
Yeah.
You know, you get the whole story behind the broken heart and what happens after the broken heart, or whatever.
Well, I can remember. This was before I was in high school. I had to be in 7th or 8th, maybe 6th grade, and talk about stories. Turn the radio on in my father's little sandwich shop. I used to help out on weekends. Well, I didn't really work, just help out, you know. And on comes a song called Big Iron by Marty Robbins. And I can remember standing and looking at the radio saying, oh my God, I was blown away. And I wanted to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. To be able to tell a story and play an instrument. We're musicians now. We play and we do all that stuff. We're never going to be like Marty Robbins, but it plants a seed. It really does. Mm-hmm. And the story, the image it puts in your mind is a wonderful thing. You're Scotland. Where did you grow up?
Glasgow.
Okay. Now, is that the big city in Scotland?
Mm-hmm. It's big. It's not the capital. Edinburgh is the capital city. Well, they always say that Edinburgh is the culturally capital city, but Glasgow is really the political capital city. But Edinburgh is the official capital. And Glasgow is a fairly large city.
And that is part of the UK. We call it.
Yeah. Well, it's part of Scotland, which is part of the UK. So I guess that's the same thing.
Now, you have a wonderful brogue. Do you call it a brogue in Scotland?
Yeah, you would call it a brogue or an accent.
And we have friends in England, friends in Europe, and sometimes I have a hard time understanding them. Scottish people.
That's because Americans never learned to talk properly.
We don't speak the Queen's English, right? But usually Scottish people, people from Scotland, they're very easy to communicate. And then we find Ireland, depending on where they're from, it can be easy or very difficult. Both of my sets of grandparents were off the boat, County Cork, County Mayo. Mm-hmm. And but it's really wild. The internet and direct dialing internationally has changed the world. It's a smaller place. Mm-hmm. We can pick up the phone and talk to friends in England or Germany or Ireland, and the whole world is shrinking. Mm-hmm. And it's made the interaction of musical cultures much more efficient. Yeah. I guess is the word. It's like that today. You can do it quickly. So, musically, we learned a little bit about you. You're from England, Scotland, and come over here to be married, 15 years ago?
Mm-hmm. It'll be 15 years in September.
Great. Where are you going to go with your music now? What's your goals? Where are you performing mostly? I see you've got many albums out. A children's album, mm-hmm. An album done in Nashville with a little bit of a bluegrass or country mm-hmm. Tinge to it. Some traditional Celtic-type music and some pop Celtic-type music. It's very varied. And from what I've heard, very good. So where will you, say in the next year, where will you be? What do you see coming for you?
Well, in the next, let's say the next 2 years, because these things always take a long time to plan. I would like to consolidate the last album that I did, which was my first, what I consider pure traditional in style, and it was done in Scotland with some of Scotland's best musicians, like Tony McManus on guitar, and Ian Fraser on fiddle, Mark Duff, who was the founder of Cape Cayley, on percussion and whistles, and and Ian Lothian, who is a superb accordionist. These guys have got great names, in their own right, and so once you've played with musicians like that, it's wow, you want to keep doing it more. So I'd love to go back and do another album like that one. In fact, I have already discussed this with Ian Bruce, the producer, and he is just as enthusiastic as he was about the first one. But we need a little bit of time to plan and prepare, and to give the latest album time to pay for itself.
I imagine these fellas all have their own careers too.
Oh, yeah.
You have to coordinate around
those.
Exactly. Get them all together at the same time.
Yeah.
That's like they say about engineers herding cats, trying to get them all in the same corral at the same moment.
Yeah.
It'd be really something.
That's also like, one of the things I might incorporate with the follow-up album to Lassie with the Lint White Locks is incorporate some of my own originals, but I'd like to write them in traditional style as opposed to contemporary style, so it would fit in with doing some real original traditionals. And I shouldn't say original traditionals, authentic traditionals. And the other thing I will work on soon is a project which I actually almost finished about 5 years ago. Well, I wrote all the music 5 years ago. It's a kids album called A Glasgow Kid at Heart. And so it's basically about childhood in Glasgow. And as I said, the song's already written. I'm waiting for an illustrator right now to finish the illustrations that are going to go in a songbook that will accompany the recording.
Good.
But that's, it's quite a major project, so there's no guarantee that it'll be finished in the next year or two, but that's one of my goals.
Who is this?
Oh, that's one of my kids. That's my cat. That's Sophie or Mary. I have two Siamese and a great
Beautiful. Beautiful animals.
Yeah, they love the music. When I get my guitar out to play, they get very high with it. They run all over the place and jump in and out of the guitar case.
Maybe we'll see that. Well, that's what happens. It's of course our dog's Queequeg is half blue tick hound and half stupid, and the poor thing he just kind of sits there and looks at you. But I think some animals do respond to it.
Yeah, well, we had a big tabby. In fact, we just lost him in March. He was a great big thing. He was about 23 pounds, and he was the most gorgeous tabby you ever saw. We should have taken him to Hollywood, but anyway, he whenever I started playing, I have a photograph of it upstairs. He would just jump right up on me. He felt the guitar was his competition, and he'd get on my knee in front of the guitar, and put his arms around my neck and lick my face, and this would happen every time I played the guitar.
But that has to affect your thought process, and it probably added to your creativity when you were, things like that. It isn't being isolated.
Yeah.
Even if it's a treasured pet sharing the music, it's some kind of interaction.
Yeah.
When you think you're alone, you're not.
Yeah.
That's wild. That's a beautiful animal. Very well behaved.
She wants attention all the time.
Well,
so
we can
might
take
have
care
to take. Thank you. She just sprayed me and got hair all over me.
Now, I hope we'll be able to hear you perform a few of your songs for us, especially a couple of the children's songs, maybe.
Okay, I haven't thought of that, but I can do that.
That would be great.
Sure.
And some of your favorites, whatever they might be, and a little bit of a story behind each one, where it came from, or what album it's off. Now, your website is www.ChristinaHarrison.com. And on there, I know, is a little bit about you, your albums, sound bits from them. And there's an awful lot in there, and folks can reach you by email.
Yeah, and if sometimes, the emails that get printed on the covers of your CDs change. So I always say to everybody, email me from my webpage, because that will always be current.
Yes, and then you just hit the contact, or whatever it is, the email or contact, and it goes right through.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's a wild thing. The internet, again, has just shrunk the world.
It's amazing.
Information.
And our telephone bills.
Information instantly, anywhere, graphics, music, you can do all kinds of things with it, and it's a wonderful medium. It really is, and it makes it easier to do business across the ocean, where years ago we had to wait weeks to go back and forth with mail. Now you can do it almost instantly.
Well, an interesting thing is when Ian and I arranged the new album, which was about this time last year, we pre-recorded the songs that we'd rehearsed into a tiny little mini recorder, like at this size, and we downloaded it onto the computer and emailed the songs to the musicians in Scotland, who then downloaded, listened to the songs and rehearsed them. So when we met up in Ochtrada, a village in Persia, where we rented the dairy cottage to record in. The guys only could come for 3 nights and 3 days, and so we were able to do most of the groundwork with them in that short time because of emailing them the songs in advance.
They were already familiar with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So you recorded that in a dairy cottage. It wasn't in a sound studio.
Well, it was professional studio equipment.
Okay.
It was moved to
not in a room with egg crates on the walls. I mean, or the foam.
In fact, we were fairly close together when we recorded. The musicians were in a combined living room and kitchen, so we really got a band sound from this recording. We were all recorded on individual tracks, but because we were playing together at the same time, we were playing with each other.
That was probably a lot of fun.
It was great. Yeah, it really was.
Look forward to hear that whole album.
I recorded in the hallway and in the bathroom. I mean, I could still hear them, but if I'd stayed in the same room as the musicians, it was too loud for me. It distracted me. So I stood in the hallway. We still had, the door open so I could hear them. And sometimes I would actually stand in the small bathroom to get some of the echo.
So it wasn't done with electronics. This was walls and plaster and don't tell me it had a thatched roof.
No, it didn't.
Okay. I know that in the mid-'70s, I had 2 maiden aunts living in County, I think it was Mayo, still living in a thatched cottage over there somewhere. Never got to see them, never got over there. But that was always amazing to me, that they were living that, life over there, and that my grandparents had left to come to America at the turn of the century.
But it reminds me, when I did the previous album in Nashville, Rich Adler's studio, it was a lovely studio. It was it was a garage, a lot of these studio people convert garages into studios. This was a big, big room, and it was beautifully done. But he lived right on the railroad track. So at a certain time in the day, we all had to sit and pause for 10 minutes to let the train go by.
Let the 214 go by, yeah. You don't want that on there, but that's stuff that you talk about years later, and you realize what great times they were, too.
Oh, yeah.
Doing all
all of the albums have been great fun.
What led you to choose the life of a entertainer, of a songwriter, of a performer?
Well, I know this story is very common. It seems to be the attractive way to introduce stars, in particular now on these talk shows. But I have been singing as long as I could talk. When I went to school at the age of 5, and there was music, we were taught music at school, all I wanted to do was sing. We had family parties. I came from a very big family in terms of aunts, uncles, cousins, and in Scotland, we have pretty extensive families. We all get together at the weekend, and the whole family would consist of about 50 people, and the youngsters got to be with the grown-ups at the parties as well. And my uncle, they were all singers, none of them professional, but they loved to sing for fun. And we'd spin the bottle, and whoever it pointed at could get up and sing. Well, as soon as my family found out that I could sing, that was it. I never got any peace, I had to constantly sing. And school choirs, church choirs, I was in every musical that, existed. I mean, my family, we never had any money. We were very poor, so there was never any, professional backing. Until I became a teenager, and my mother and myself, we moved to England. And my mother had a boarding house, so I was basically a child slave in this boarding house, helping to feed 24 people 4 times a day.
How old were you then?
12.
Okay.
And that lasted for a decade until I got myself to college. But then just across the street was a church, and my stepfather, who was from Ireland, said to me, he said, I know the choir director. He said, let me introduce you, because he really knew I wanted to sing. So, to cut a long story short, I became the leading soprano in a traveling choir that was based out of this church, and we do Negro spirituals, and we travel the country in a big coach, weekends, you know. I remember my gran, who was very old-fashioned and very Victorian, would sometimes come and stay with us for a couple of weeks. And my mother always knew that I was with the church, so she never worried about where I was or what I was doing. And sometimes we'd travel, you know, for miles. So we wouldn't get home until about midnight, and I'd be about, you know, 13 years old. And my gran would be saying, "What kind of a church is that keeps her teenagers out to midnight?" You know. Well, anyway, the interesting thing is that she still very much supported my singing. In actual fact, she let me go to a singing teacher. Well, it happened to be the choir leader, Bill Ibbotson, who used to be the piano player for Isabel Bailey, who was a well-known opera star from Australia, and also Sir Malcolm Sargent. He was in connection with the Salvation Army. And he also had his own orchestra.
So you were running with the right bunch. To be exposed to some serious music.
I mean, I don't know, exposure wasn't great, you know, commercially, yes, but I was certainly...
On a personal level.
Yeah, I was getting the right influences musically. But then, so I was classically trained for a couple of years, and then the Beatles appeared. And I'm giving away my age, but anyway, the Beatles appeared.
I remember it.
And I thought, well, I can't carry a piano from town to town with me, but I can sure carry a guitar. So I went down to the local music shop and found this guitar that had a crack in the back, but it was only £7. As I tell everybody, I used to carry my capo and my picks inside the guitar. And then I got myself a songbook with easy chords and taught myself. And it wasn't until I was teaching in London that I decided to become, I guess, semi-professional. And that's because I was approached by some local musicians who were starting a band. And we were a country band, bluegrass country. So that really, you know, started me off in getting into the, I don't know if this is the right word or not, the commercial mode, you know. And then I also was in a jazz duo. I loved jazz ballads. I loved Ella Fitzgerald. And so in one band I was singing Joan Baez's ballads, and the other band I was singing Ella Fitzgerald ballads.
The lady could sing. Well, both of them could sing.
Yeah. And then and the interesting thing is this, I always knew all I wanted to do was sing. I really wanted to sing more than I wanted to teach. But the advice of a man who ran a radio show was, do your bread and butter first. And I wasn't, you know, I wasn't married, I was single, so I was having to keep my own roof over my head. And I'd left home as fast as I could leave. And so after I graduated from college, I was pretty much on my own financially. So I did the bread and butter thing, and I did enjoy teaching, but music was always my first love. And I remember 15 years ago waking up one morning and saying, right, this is it, I've had it with teaching, I've got to sing full time. I'm going to go to Paris, or I'm going to go to Germany, and I'm going to busk, because I didn't know how else to do it. And that morning, you know, you really know when you've made your mind up about something. And that morning, I walked across the staff room. It was a huge staff room. It's a large school, 2,000 pupils, and there were about 90 members of staff. And I was walking from one corner, and my husband, who of course I hadn't even spoken to at this stage, was walking from the other corner. And we met in the middle, and he said to me, I hear that you're a musician. He said, you should come to America. And I said, okay.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
Yeah.
That's great. Very interesting background. A lot of interesting stories in there. You've had a very varied, very busy, active life. Mm-hmm. I want to hear some of your music. If we could.
That's the easy part.
Yeah. A few of your favorites, or whatever you want to do.
Tried to write in the form of a traditional song. Actually, it was co-written. My husband wrote the lyrics, and I wrote music. And I haven't sung it for a little while. I guess I should have rehearsed it.
No, I like it this way. And I guess, well, you also, it's a wonderful thing that your husband supports. And
Oh yeah, couldn't do it without him.
we met him coming into your home here. He's out working in the garden today. And, he it comes across the support and the musical fellowship that's there in this home. It's a wonderful thing.
This song is called Watercolors, and it's written about a lady who's left at home in Schlagenach, which is a village on the Isle of Skye, while her husband is fishing. He's a professional fisherman, so he goes off to sea when he has to, and she's left raising the farm and the child that they have. And what's missing today is the fantastic Ilian pipes that Eric Rigler played on this track when I recorded. Although this was one of the more Scottish songs that I did when I went to Nashville. I took Scotland to Nashville.
Good, good.
And Eric Rigler was I don't know if you heard those beautiful pipes, and the Titanic movie.
Yes.
The very, very beginning of the movie, the opening scene. You don't see it anywhere, but on the soundtrack you will hear Ilian pipes, and they were done by Eric Rigler.
Now the Ilian pipe, is that the one they play?
Yeah,
okay.
They're from Ireland.
Yeah, the Irish pipes, yes, as opposed to the Scottish where they blow into it. The Irish, they pump it.
Exactly. And in Scotland they have the Highland pipes, which are big pipes, and they also have the small pipes, which look similar to the Ilian pipes, but they blow into it. But apparently it's a lot harder doing this thing.
I understand that it's quite a skill to be able to do that. So we'll pretend that there's some Ilian pipes playing there.
Well, you'll hear that on the album too. Across that long stretched water, when your day comes I have night, and constantly I think of you when I see pins of distant light. Do whales glide from your harbor? I suppose the stars are bright. The Highland fog is cloaking by some crops are in flight. When will the winds encircle, bring you sailing home to me? Next shearing time in Sligo again, our William will be free. Maggie Stewart's John to Glasgow, to the steamies for new pay, placed in her jets pneumonia, she'll never be pigeon hay. In that long rolling water is the color of your eyes. Oh, when will the winds encircle, bring you sailing home to me? Next year in time, it's like a can, our William will be three. Oh, when will the winds encircle, bring you sailing home to me? Next year in time, it's like a can, our William will be three. Come play with me and sing with me and dance with your tiny feet. I'll take you to my Hampton, down in Ecclesy Street. In winter we would sit round the fire, making toast and tea, and my auntie she would tell us tales that'd make us laugh all day. Come play with me and sing with me and dance with your tiny feet. I'll take you to my Hampton, down in Ecclesy Street. In summer we'd go out to play, gather all our friends. There were Sheila and Doreen and Irene and Alex. Of course, we all fancied him. Come play with me and sing with me and dance with your tiny feet. I'll take you to my Hampton, down in Ecclesy Street. It was church every Sunday morning, then everyone come to the house. At the table we'd listen to the old gents talk, thank goodness for ice cream and mousse. Come play with me and sing with me, dance with your tiny feet. I'll take you to my Hampton, down in Ecclesy Street. I remember the garden roses, reading a book by the fire, sleighing in the Lamb Hill Park, playing games we'd never tire. Come play with me and sing with me, dance with your tiny feet. I'll take you to my Hampton, down in Ecclesy Street. Come play with me and sing with me and dance with your tiny feet. I'll take you to my Hampton, down in Ecclesy Street, down in Ecclesy Street.
I'm going to ask you to go out with another of your favorites, but I want to show the folks something. There's a songbook by Christina with the words and the chords to a whole lot of the songs.
First 4 albums I did.
On the first 4 albums. And even some of the ones that are rather Annie Laurie, Scotland the Brave. You've even got Puff the Magic Dragon in here,
yeah,
which is on one of your things. I'm really looking forward to hearing these. The one we just heard. And
My Hamburger Mood at Me, I just saw, that's a song, I almost sang that, it gets a lot of attention because they think it's funny. That was co-written by my husband and myself.
how do you pronounce that?
Carrick Fergus.
Okay, that's an old song,
That's
is it not?
song,
That's in the Irish songbook that Patrick and I have at home.
Yeah.
It's a neat old song. So there's an awful lot in here, and your repertoire covers a whole lot of music. Everything from, well, Puff the Magic Dragon, who doesn't know that, to the old ballads, the old standards.
And it's illustrated. I put in some old family photographs and photographs to match the theme of the songs.
With my ain hame tune. So that's your own hometown.
Yeah, very
yes,
good.
Very good.
Well, there's also a glossary.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay. This is interesting. This can be ordered off your website. That's something that even if you know the songs, this is very interesting book.
I've done it exactly as it's recorded. So if the cable's on the second fret and you play it in with this C shape, that's how it'll be written in the book.
And here's a glossary of pronounced vowels as in parentheses. Flare is floor. Okay. Guan is going or gone. Guan. Gan, yes. Guile. How do you pronounce that?
Oh, Gil.
Gil is Gale, is jail. Okay, wow, that's interesting. I like that. We used to have a thing on our website, a Chrisfield dictionary, where we take the local pronunciation of words and put it up against, and some of them you wouldn't know what word it is unless you saw it. So this
Did I just say jail? It should be jail.
Jail.
Take me to the jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just slang.
That's very interesting. I think this is something that's you folks might be interested in. Contact Christina and be sure to ask for that. There's a lot in there. Covers the first 4 albums.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a bit confusing. I've actually done 6 recordings, but only 5 of them were put on CD. 5.5.
Okay. So there must be a tape or an album.
There's a tape, but some of it didn't get put on the CD.
Now we're showing our age, right? I can remember when CDs first came out, the people who were hooked into vinyl and tape, it'll never catch on.
Yeah.
It's just a fad. Hey guys, guess what?
I still sell a lot of cassettes though. It's
Yes.
surprising. People who haven't got CD players in the car like cassettes.
Yes, but I guess vinyl is about gone. That's the way of the dodo.
We still have all our old albums up in the attic, melting. Because we can't find a record player to play them on.
Yeah, it's pretty hard nowadays.
Yeah.
You find if you go into like a Circuit City, you'll find 1 or 2 of them stuck back in the corner, and they're fairly expensive, and they look at you like you're nuts. You want one of these? What are you, crazy?
So why do they charge a lot of money for it?
Now, I got to tell you one thing. You might appreciate this bit of the folklore of my family. As I said, both sets of grandparents were off the boat in the early part of the 20th century. My Aunt Kate, God rest her soul, always wanted to visit the old sod, as they say. And I think it was in the mid-80s, 86, 85, finally got to visit Ireland. And went over there, saved for years to go over. Visited County Cork, County Mayo, all the places where the ancestors were from. Went to Blarney Castle. Bent down to kiss the Blarney Stone, and when they brought her up, she was dead. She died with her lips on the Blarney Stone. As I'm sitting on this couch, that's the truth. And as far as I know, that's the only one that ever did that. And to this day, in Annie's Cafe in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, yay to Aunt Kate. Patrick told the story. He was playing with the Clan Seol, an Irish band. And the boyos thought that was pretty interesting. That Aunt Kate died on the Blarney Stone. So
a typical Irishman ending the interview with a morbid story.
I don't think that's so morbid. I think it's interesting. Is there such a thing as a typical Irishman?
My stepfather was. He told me so many ghost stories. I was frightened to go to bed at night.
Well, the Irish love the
They love ghost stories.
the banshee and the different things like that. Yeah.
He'd just sit and tell one after the other, and I'd be so scared I couldn't go away. I couldn't go out the room.
Okay, so my grandfather with the puka, same thing. That was sort of a ghost story, I guess, a scary, spooky thing. But dear old Aunt Kate did die with her lips on the Blarney Stone.
Yeah.
What better way for a true Irishman to go? Either or that with a pint in your hand, one or the other, right? So where are you going to be now in the near future? What can we look forward to?
Well, I've got a couple of local things next week. Chesapeake City is one of them, the Arts Council in Rockford Park in Wilmington. And then the week after that, I go off to Indiana, doing a festival out there. Then when I come back from that, I go to Europe. I'm doing some concerts in Sardinia.
Sardinia? You don't hear that too often.
No, on the Mediterranean. I'm taking my swimming costume, even though I can't swim. And then I have to come back. As soon as I get back, I go up to Long Island and do a festival there. Then a festival in Pittsburgh the next day. And then after that, the real busy season kicks in. I'm doing the Guinness Oyster Festival in Boston on the waterfront. That's Labor Weekend. And then I'll go to Green Lane Park Festival in Pennsylvania.
I know where that is. That isn't the Goshenhoppen, is it? There's a Goshenhoppen Festival up there. That's the Pennsylvania Dutch
Festival. I don't think that's
Festival.
what it's called. No.
But I know Green Lane, beautiful area.
Yeah, it was a Scottish festival in Green Lane.
Okay, good.
And then immediately after that, I go up to Loon Mountain to one of the biggest Scottish festivals in the country in New Hampshire. And then I do some libraries up there, Merrimack, Concord.
So you're on the road quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's going to be a busy summer and fall.
Yeah.
That's great.
The busiest season tends to be from May until October with the festivals. And then in the winter, I do more coffee houses, folk clubs, Robert Burns dinners. I'm doing some St. Andrew's Society dinners in November. December I do a lot of Borders bookstores. So, and I actually do have a manager who's going to take me over. To begin with part-time, and then hopefully eventually I can let go of the reins.
Good, and then just concentrate on creating and performing.
Yeah, that would be a real
Take
luxury.
a big load off.
Yeah.
Well, that's wild. Sardinia and Boston and Indiana. So you're going to be doing a lot of traveling, and it's a busy, varied life, isn't it?
Okay.
You wouldn't trade it, would you?
No. Some days I think I'm going to go get a normal job, and then.
Unfortunately for you, this is normal.
Yeah.
For us, this
exactly.
is normal.
That's the truth,
That's wonderful.
So,
Good. Be sure to contact Christina. Ask her about her songbook, which I find fascinating. I'm going to enjoy this. Thank you. Patrick and I will use this.
there's a couple of typos, I have to admit. No matter how many times you proof something,
We find that the more I proof, the more mistakes I find on everything I do. I've come to the conclusion that you cannot proof your own work. I got some advice from a fellow that I work with. He said, read it backwards.
Wow.
Try that. Read your work backwards. It's very tedious, but you will find 5 times the spelling and punctuation errors that if you do it frontwards.
Yeah.
Let me know if it works.
Yeah.
Let us know if it works, folks. Read it backwards. And that's from Dan Statursky. Gave us that advice, and I found it to be correct. Lots of good albums here. Contact Christina. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you. And you can preview any of her work on her website. Very well done website.
Thank you.
A lot of stuff on there. And be sure to...
Well, that's hosted by John McGlinchey.
Okay.
A great friend, and he really helps out an awful lot of folk musicians with the Fortissimo website.
Good. So if any artists want to contact him, I guess they could do that through the site there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or if you just go to my site, they'll have immediate contact
Good.
to
Good.
John.
But it's very well done because I got a pretty good idea of what you're doing. I was referred, of course, by the review, and then by the time I got to the site, I had a pretty good picture of what I was going to be talking to, who I was going to be
Oh,
talking
that's great.
to. So
Yeah.
very well done.
Great. Thank you.
I want to thank you for having
Oh,
us
you're welcome.
into your
Thank
home,
you.
taking the time to talk to us, and
Oh, you're
sharing your musical life and a little bit of your music. What I'd like you to do is take us out with something just that makes you happy.
Well, I'm going to sing a song that's become quite a favourite, actually, over 10 years now. It's a song I wrote 10 years ago, and I wrote it after I had an argument with my husband. And I get letters in the mail, especially from husbands, saying that they can really identify with us. And one guy in particular told me that his wife had been trying to get the message across to him for 20 years, and he finally got it when I sang this song. I think it was in Bellevue State Park in Wilmington. And but I've recorded this one twice. It went on my very first album, Exiles, because I wanted to put some originals on it. And then when I did my second last album, which is all originals except for one, in Nashville, I had to include this song. It's a slightly different version on the latest album, which I prefer.
What's the name of this one?
It's called Don't Let the Sun Go Down Upon Your Anger.
Now, I saw that on your video there, your video sampler, and I was going to ask you for it, and then I thought, no, I'm not going to ask you to pick one. I'm glad you picked that one, because the title is very intriguing, and it's very good advice. Let's hear it.
And I'll end all my concerts with this song, because I like to leave with a positive message.
Okay.
Don't let the sun go down upon your anger. Don't let me cry into the night. Whisper you love me. Don't let that first love die. Don't wait till tomorrow to say it's alright. I need to know you love me, even when I cry. I need to know that you're my friend until the day I die. Don't walk away from me. Don't switch on that darn TV. Put your arms around me tight. I wanna love, not fight. Don't let the sun go down upon your anger. Don't let me cry into the night. Whisper you love me. Don't let that first love die. Don't wait till tomorrow to say it's alright. Broken hearts make broken minds, but love's supposed to heal. Just give me your heart, your word, that your love is real. Don't let the sun go down upon your anger. Don't let me cry into the night. Whisper you love me. Don't let that first love die. Don't wait till tomorrow to say